confirm that we have a quorum, so I'm calling to order the meeting of the Service Committee of the Central Midlands Regional Transit Authority. And our next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda.
You want to call the roll?
So moved.
Call the roll.
A second. Oh, wait a minute, we'll call the roll first. Not
Mr.
take my word for it.
Mr. Brennan? Mr. Burgess?
Present.
Ms. Gleaton?
Present.
Ms. Herbert? Ms. Mood?
Here.
I'll call advisory members. Mr. Jenkins? Mr. Coon? Ms. Robinson? We have a quorum.
There's
Hey, this is Will Brennan.
we still have Allison listed on that, at the top of that first page is a member, so we just need to
Okay.
take her off.
I'll correct that.
All right, so now, Mr. Burgess has made a motion that we adopt the agenda. Is there a second? I second it. And call the roll on that.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. Burgess?
Yes.
Ms. Gleaton?
Yes.
Ms. Herbert? Ms. Mood?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, and we'll go on to the report from the Midlands Transit Riders Association, Mr. Durst.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. Yesterday I was on the bus and I was very delighted to hear an announcement on the bus saying no profanity on the bus. And it was in English and Spanish, although I'm not real sure most of us would know what profanity was in Spanish, but at least it was there. So I appreciate that. Seeing the new WLTX commercial regarding the USC students, thought it was really good, Pam. Did I hear that that they can use debit cards to board the bus? And if so, maybe we need to look at that company-wide. I imagine that it would cost something, but anyway, that sure would be a helpful thing. Or like a lot of cities do where they have refillable cards, maybe we need to look into that as well. Lastly, there's something in the minutes, and since y'all are going to be adopting the minutes after this, there was something in the minutes that I think is incorrect, or I did not mean to infer it last month. But in the minutes, it says, I took a personal moment to address Mr. Burgess and apologize for any issues, which is true. And then it says, and I thanked him for taking the lead on phases 2 and 3 of the Lucius Road and River project, and that he looks forward, meaning me, to working with the rest of the board on carrying out the project. That's not entirely accurate. And if I said that, I didn't mean to infer it. Mr. Burgess and I are sort of on the same page about some questions regarding phases 2 and 3 and about some of the stuff that's proposed on phases 2 and 3. And speaking on behalf of the MTRA, I have to say that there are several things in phases 2 and 3 that we vehemently oppose. So I just wanted to put that out there. So if you want to correct the minutes, I would appreciate it. And that is all. Thank you.
Does anybody have questions for Mr. Durst? All right, so your suggestion, we can let staff take that and look at the possibilities there. And then that takes us to the adoption of the minutes, which is good, because what I'm hearing Mr. Durst say is that he would like to have the phrase thanked him for taking the lead on phases 2 and 3 on the Lucius River project removed from the minutes to make that more accurate. Is that?
I don't see that in the minutes.
It's
The previous minutes.
Yes, the previous, it's
It's not these minutes, I don't think.
well, it's, yeah, I'm reading from these, let's
So
see.
you are?
On page 1, of the packet, and it's in Mr. Durst's report, the third from the last line.
Yes, I'll show you.
Oh,
So he, what I understood Mr. Durst say was he didn't mean to imply that you were, taking the lead on phases 2 and 3 of the Lucius River project, that actually both you and he have some reservations. So if we,
delete it.
do you have a motion that we amend the minutes by removing that phrase
So moved.
in a
I
second?
second
And then let's vote on the amendment.
Mr. Brennan,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Ms. Clayton,
it. Yes.
Ms. Herbert, Ms. Mood,
Yes.
motion carries.
And then we'll need a motion to approve the amended minutes. Just need a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
So moved.
Okay, and a second.
I'll second it.
Vote.
Mr. Brennan,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Ms. Clayton,
Yes.
Ms. Herbert, Ms. Mood,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right. Thank you for that. And that takes us to 5A, which is the passenger amenities program update. Zach,
Hey there.
we have a shorter report this month, Zach. Shorter list this month, do we? Shorter.
Yeah, I guess I didn't pay much attention, but anyway, I guess the main items that we've been working on the last month, we continue to coordinate with DOT and the property owner at stop 799 on Decker Boulevard. I think we're almost to resolution at that stop. We've finalized with Midlands Tech where they want the stop on the Northeast campus. We submitted 4 stops to DOT for review. And we also, with some help from the discussion we had in the last meeting, we have made contact with the property owner at Broad and Zimmelcrest. They're thinking about it at the moment, but I haven't been able to make contact with them.
Okay.
So those are the highlights. If there's any questions.
Any questions for Mr. McGee? I'm glad that seems to be untangling one knot anyway, and that's good. All right, so we would accept that report for information and move on to the Lucius and River Super Stop update. Eric?
Thank you to the members of the committee. The Lucius Road Super Stop is still moving as scheduled. It's scheduled to be complete by the end of this month. If you are in person, you can see much of the work has been complete up to date. So we are excited about that, but there's a lot of intricacies we just want to make sure we sort out. But back in July, we did have the opportunity to meet with the Earlwood Neighborhood Association. The meeting went very well. We had Councilwoman Tina Herbert, she was there, and we had a pretty nice sized crowd, from the community. And we did receive some good feedback. A lot of it was positive. One of the things they were most excited about is that comment loop, which is more so in that last phase of the project. But they felt like it would just give them all the access that they need to get to some of the key destinations. So we're starting to see a pretty positive push, at least amongst this particular neighborhood, for what is to come. And they just want to see the future of it. So I think outside of that, we are going to continue to push out public engagement opportunities just to make sure we gather as much of a response that we possibly can. And that way, as we move into phase 2 of the project, we can find ways to resolve and rectify anything that may have gone wrong in phase 1. Again, phase 1 is very minimal. But for what it's worth, we want to make sure that we stay as connected to what the issues are on the ground as we possibly can to minimize the impact and how we have to communicate, even from this meeting to just from a public standpoint about the project and the things that are going well and things that are not going well. I think that is about it. We will circle back to Earlwood for each phase of the project. So there will be an ongoing discussion with them because it is in their community. But we, as of right now, we just have all positive feedback, and August, towards the end of August, should be the day that the site will be complete. There will be a QA, QC, quality assurance, quality control process afterwards, just to make sure that it will be safe for the buses to board and alight at the site. But that's all I have for now.
All right, so I'm understanding that you all have been satisfied that we resolved the construction concerns?
They're still working on it. I don't want to say they're quite resolved until I know for
That's
sure.
what you're saying, that final quality review would be where we
Correct.
reach that point, okay?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just have one question on the Superstar. Who do we have that's gonna validate that work to the board when they say it's completed? What type of validation?
So what would a quality, so being able to test out a bus at the site, it would be an example. So one of the issues before is that when the bus was entering into the entryway, it was scrubbing the ground. So we want to do those little tests. We want to also give the concrete an opportunity to cure, to see, do we see cracks that start to exist, which what we saw. And once we, I guess we can say preliminary, when they said that the site was already completed before. So we want to see how the concrete heals over time. So that's one notion of it. And also too, some of the feedback that we received, like looking at other amenities, like bicycle racks and stuff like that, just exploring all the things that we know will be needed on the site and making sure that it will be comparable for when we are ready to start service.
And so what you're asking is that then will that quality, that final quality review be reported to the board formally? Is that what you're
Yes,
asking?
absolutely.
No, that wasn't what he was
Just
asking.
the validation that this work that we paid for is of the quality of what we
Yes.
paid.
Yes.
But one other thing, we had some city issues. Are those gonna be resolved?
Some city issues?
City.
Say more about that. Do you need?
Well, it was something that came out from the city.
So Mr. Fergus, so we did meet with the city of Columbia. We met with them in May, June, Pam, I believe so. We did have we had a pretty extensive conversation with them as well to let them know. And one of the main takeaways from that meeting, we wanted to make sure that what we're proposing aligns with what they were expecting. So we didn't have any issues from that meeting that we had to take away and say we had to modify anything, but so far it looks like, again, from the comment standpoint, what we're proposing versus what they're expecting, we're in lockstep.
Madam Chair, I'm gonna have to go back and dig it because it was an issue that came out of one of the city departments complaining on watershed and all that. So all that's been resolved. See that was,
Yeah, so the issue that came from the city was that they were saying that the drive aprons, they were being blocked by buses. They were saying there were some issues with loitering and things of that nature at that particular site. So the goal was to downsize the area. And the most scalable thing that you can do is try to figure out, okay, how far do we want to downsize to?
You keep giving me answers that I'm not asking.
Okay.
This was coming from the city on their evaluation of the property,
Of the new site,
of the site.
of the,
Yeah, it has
The
nothing to do
Superstop
with
site.
loitering. It was watershed and that type thing, but I guess, all right.
Okay, and Eric, I'll try to address this.
Yeah.
Now, I know as we went through the project, Mr. Fergus, we did have some issues out there as they were working with the project as far as water getting off of. But when the city came out and did all of their inspections, it was identified. And we addressed all of those through the project manager. which is brownstone. So all the things that were brought to our attention by the city, we were able to correct those things because during that process, and I'm hoping this is the same thing you're talking about, when we were looking at how water was getting away from it and everything, you know, the issue that if those things weren't corrected, they were going to stop the project. So in working with the project manager, Brownstone and all, and the other contractors that were working out there, we were able to correct all those things. So I don't know whether that's exact, but anything that was brought to our attention throughout the project, we had to address those things to keep the project moving along.
What I'm speaking of, and I don't know why everybody else don't have it, it was something that came from the city department after we started getting the cracks and all, and they talked about watershed and all that, and I think this came from somebody else to the city to crank them up to look at it.
Now, we had an issue where the water would get away from the area. And I guess where the water was running into that creek, I think it was eroding some of the
That-
dirt that was underneath.
That is correct.
That is being addressed, and I think that's pretty much taken care of on our project list that we had.
And there was water coming up through some of the cracks.
Okay.
So they took up all the concrete.
And my thing is, when Brownstone finished this project, who's gonna validate that it's good, or they just gonna sign off and say, we finish and we sign off, okay? Nobody look at the project to say, why the concrete cracked? Why did we have the watershed? Why it wasn't, you know, before we actually let them off the hook.
So, and you're right, Mr. Ferguson. So there will be a series of meetings and also a report that will have to be developed to speak to why it occurred and what was used in order for it to be resolved. So we will present that to the board. That way everyone, and especially the committee, that way everyone is well aware of what took place, why it took place. But to Leroy's point, we have up to this point addressed all the concerns that was there throughout the length of the project.
So what I'm understanding is that that final report will contain a record of the problems that were identified and how they were corrected, and a confirmation that they were corrected. And that will be all a part of the official record. Is that getting your concern, Mr. Burton? Okay. Anything else on the Lucius and River Super Stop?
And I think one additional thing, I think that, Michelle just noted this for me, but for 12 months after the construction is completed, I believe it's 12. So if I'm wrong, I apologize, but it should be anywhere between 6 months to 12 months after the project is completed. They will still be held accountable for any thing that may go wrong with the project. So we still will have an opportunity to correct anything at that point in time.
Anything that shows up after the fact? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, good. Anything else on that item? Thank you for that report, and we'll move to 5C, the transit operations report. Mr. Cook.
Yes, good afternoon. I will go through my report and answer any questions that you may have. I promise not to keep you too long. Just want to kind of start this out. As far as COVID, what we've noticed is, you know, when I put this together, we have had some increases over the summer. I think that just follows the path of the previous summers. There was an ensemble of an academic and federal modelers who said last month the main period of activity, we're looking for late fall, early winter over the next 2 years, with kind of a medium peak between November and mid-January. There will be an updated vaccine, my understanding, in late September for those, you know, who are interested in taking that. And of course, that was requested by the FDA. So again, just a reminder, we still got a little ways to go, right? And in fact, I've noticed several people recently have been cold and sick and stuff like that. So you can, you know, whatever's happening there, but I just wanted to.
So that overview is really from the national picture.
Just a national
We have-
picture,
okay.
yeah.
Locally, we have experience, I mean, in the staff, we have.
Right, we just had one reported last month. Nothing else has been reported so far this month, but we just kind of be sharp and do all the things we know to do. As far as customer service, we did meet our target, and reliability, which is a good number, did decrease because that's generally about buses being on time or showing up late. So we did continue to see that decrease, even though we were up over last month. Some of it could be heat related. People just get a little less, fuse is a little shorter on things. So, but we've been doing really well in our customer service area overall. So something a little different. I have a few people that you don't normally see with me today. I did something, I know we normally highlight our operators and maintenance as far as operators of the month. But I really wanted to do like a manager spotlight. These are people that you don't see, they're behind the scenes, and they really make things work and make things go for us. And there was three originally. One, she was not well, she's not with us today. What I have in with me is our HR manager, Courtney Coney. Courtney's been here for a little over 2 years, and she's our HR manager. She's incredible with what she does with engagement and retention. I mean, she's a Benedict graduate, so you know she likes to throw that up all the time. And but I wanted to ask her, just take a quick moment, and if you can just tell kind of what motivates you in that area, because it's so critical in us providing service of how you do what you do.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. A lot about what we do, we live by 4 objectives in our area, and that is to define, align, drive, and we also want to sustain the workforce. And we do that by creating a culture that elevates the employee experience. What we've come to find out is that happy people perform better, and they're more engaged, and they're more productive. And on the back end, that helps us with reducing customer complaints, absenteeism, horrible retention levels. So it just kind of helps overall. And so what motivates me is that I know that we have customers that we have to serve, and I know that it's important that we are operating effectively and efficiently. So that's what I try to do every day.
All right, very good. Well, we appreciate you, all that you do, and thank you for coming up and letting me pull you up on your busy day. Another person I have next to me is Ms. Alicia Peterson. She's our quality assurance manager. And a lot of times when I do the different things, talking about customer service, investigation of any issues, a lot of this, basically all of it funnels to Ms. Peterson. She's been with us for 2 years. She's been an integral part of our numerous projects and different things that we do. She handles all of the customer service complaints down to the level when it gets to RATP Dev as far as investigating, video review, analysis. So can you just tell us a little bit about what you do and your success?
Yes.
How you see things, because it's critical in what we report out here.
Right. So good afternoon. I guess from very early on have always been very analytical and detail driven. So it was kind of a good fit for me when this position became open and available. I like to answer the question of why. So if someone calls in with a complaint, I always have the question, okay, why? What happened? So being able to pull the footage, pull the operator in, look at any reporting that was provided is always very helpful for me, and it just answers that question of why. And then just having a good working relationship with the other managers and the other staff. You know, if I have complaints concerning operators, there is a good rapport with the operations manager, the HR manager, the safety manager, so that we can kind of team up, huddle up, and make sure that we are addressing our staff if necessary, but also looking at some of the trends to make sure that we are advising our staff of, hey, it's going to be hot. Make sure you leave your doors open, or whatever we can do to make things more comfortable for the customer to prevent those calls or those complaints. Just, you know, being action-minded, but also being detail-driven has always helped me.
Very good. So those are 2 of the 3. Miss Olga Graziano, who's our IT manager, a little under the weather early part of the day. She's not here. But again, she's been here since almost the inception of the contract. And she keeps all these systems running behind the scenes. So she's a critical part of us being able to turn the computer on and go every day and all the software that it takes to run an agency this size. So again, I just wanted to highlight them. They're great employees and they're the people behind the scenes. You know, when I report stuff out, they're making things happen. So.
And I thank you for giving us a chance to see those faces behind the scenes, because that is, both of them are doing very key work, all three of them, and they are invisible to us.
Right.
And that's good, because when things go well, then we don't see you as often, but thank you for putting faces on that good work.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I ride the buses quite a bit because I'm always out being nosy in my dog's nose. And what has really kind of bothered me sometimes when I'm on bus, the air conditioner is running great. Do you know people will get up there and open up them windows?
Yeah.
Now, am I wrong? It don't make sense. It's very comfortable when you get on the bus. In the mornings, I go, most of the time, that's what I do. I go early in the morning because I'm old and I ain't got the business. It's hot. But they will get time to get on that bus. They haven't sat on the bus 5 minutes. They open up all those windows all the way down the line. And so one day I asked the bus driver, I said, why do they do that? She said, our public leaders do it all the time.
So is that an example that you'd like to tell us how does that kind of concern get handled?
So we do actually, I get those complaints a lot. The AC isn't working, this, that, and the other. With having good relationships with all of the managers, I have a good relationship with our maintenance manager. So I'll go back and say, Kevin, what's going on? I can look in the work orders and see, okay, is this bus actually having issues that have been documented and we've addressed? If there's nothing in the system as far as a work order or a problem, I usually will have him, because you know our mechanics are 24 hours a day. I'll have our night shift mechanics pull that bus, just check it out, make sure everything is functioning properly, because we do want to make sure everyone is as comfortable as possible. But with that being said, those systems are vacuum systems. So when the doors are closed and the windows are closed, it's going to cool properly.
Right.
But with the doors consistently opening as people get on and off, and then opening those windows, it just like at Walmart, you know, you open the door and all the cold air goes out. When you open the doors and the windows of the buses, all the cold air goes out, which makes it warmer inside the bus. And then the system has to constantly try to catch up. So there's not a good fix, so to speak, without advising passengers not to open the windows, but then that causes other issues. So from my standpoint, from a complaint standpoint, I'm mainly looking at it going, it may be warm on the bus, but if it's 105 outside, there's not a whole lot we can do as long as the system is properly functioning, which is what we're looking to make sure. If it's not, then obviously we want to address that as quickly as possible. But if it's doing what it should, then, you know, unfortunately, we're at the mercy of all of our other passengers and customers.
So is it usual practice for a driver to be able to just make a request that the windows be closed and to point out that it affects the comfort for the rest of the passengers?
Yeah, they can make that request. The real remedy to it is just order buses where you can't open the window. This is the only place I've been where you can open that top window.
Well, I wondered whether that was a
So
safety
there's-
feature.
You have buses with the windows designed where in case of an emergency, you can escape. But
Exactly.
you're not able to open the top part of it. So that's just the bus design. Maybe in the future we look at a different type. to
So
remedy that.
there's not a way to modify that on the buses that we
No,
have?
no, not currently. There's no way to really modify that. So.
Madam Chair, may I suggest something maybe?
Sure.
So perhaps we do have Olga program something in the system that says our buses are climate
you can do
controlled.
that.
Please keep the windows closed for your additional comfort or something like that.
We can do
I've
that.
seen stickers put on windows.
There's stickers you can
On
put
the
on.
windows.
There's an
That's
option.
worth, that sounds worth it.
Announcements.
Because you know.
Yeah, we can give it a shot. But in saying that, and not jumping too far ahead, last year we had a lot of challenges with our mean distance between road calls related to our air conditioning issues. But this year what we did was we put an AC plan in place in March So if we look at our statistics for our mean distance between roll call, we've actually met our target where last year we were missing it. So also on the preventative side, kind of planning earlier. So that means we were ordering fluids and parts and things much earlier in anticipation of these ACs going down. So we've done a little bit better there, even though we still got to get through August. But the data shows that that worked this year, so it's something we'll follow next year.
Okay, well, that was a very useful discussion, and thank you for raising that question.
And again, thank you. And Olga, who's not here, will be the one doing the programming. So, so the other personality spotlights, I'll make sure I let her know.
I know the staff picked up on some of those
Yes.
things that we might try.
And also to Lenny's point, myself and Jackie get a report each morning, a dial report on just basically the buses that are out of service. And it was so funny you mentioned that. I looked at this morning and I looked at some others of AC problems. And I could tell they was nowhere near, I don't think, compared to last year. So I knew that they had been doing something. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I did notice the buses that were out of service. I think it might have been one or two that maybe was listed on there where you were addressing AC things. But this is a crucial time of the year for problems like that. But seems like you got your hands around it this year.
This year, we had a good year, right? Just got to get through August.
So we'll let you proceed.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll move quickly through this. As far as the maintenance side, we met our target there, exceeded our target. Our on-time performance slightly up over last month. We did hit 80s or higher 6 times during the month. We did have some construction challenges throughout the month and a bunch of other issues that impacted our numbers that sunk them a little lower to climb back up. But even we still managed to exceed what we did in June. We'll have an opportunity over these next couple of phases with this new Lucius and River project to make additional adjustments to timing things we just haven't touched yet. So I'm hoping to be able to continue to work on that. As far as our ridership, we're up over last year, which, you know, I think we're predicting we would be a little bit less than what we did in June, 3.5 and then 3.59% decrease. Other than that, I mean, we're kind of, we should see a bump this month, obviously, with school coming back in, a lot more activity. It's starting a little bit later in August than it did last year, so the number won't be as large, but we anticipate to see the number climb. And from 22 to 23, everything is just really running consistently the same as far as increases. So we want to, you know, obviously continue to see that. It's important for our growth for the organization. Continue to promote ridership. It's critical, actually. USC starts on the 24th. So we're currently in reduced service. We'll be going back to full service. Pretty excited about that, kind of getting things cranked up around here and all the excitement around that and football games and all the stuff that comes along with that.
So what I would expect us to see with that USC ridership is that the actual rider number will go up, but it'll be spread over more routes. So that I mean, the passengers per hour on each bus,
Right.
we might see a difference in will be an increase, but it might not be as much of a leap as you
Right.
would see if we were just running the same number of buses we're running right now.
That's correct. Yeah.
6 to 1 still runs down at by the stadium, right? 6 to 1.
Yes.
I know the traffic will pick up more on that one too.
As far as our DART ridership, we did have a few more higher no-shows in July and June. Again, that could be weather attributed. Their numbers are pretty close to the previous month as far as the distance and passengers per trip and average length. So there wasn't much adjustment on their end, you know, during the summer months here. You know, we'll obviously, as we see increases in our area, they also at the same time, a lot of times it kind of mirrors each other. So we'll see as we come out of these difficult hot months. From a safety standpoint, we did have one less preventable accident versus June, so that's good by our standards. We did exceed our target in our area, in our safety performance area. So Mary, I think I introduced her a couple of months ago, continues to do a fabulous job getting the message out about safety, 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 safety. Safety first. As far as our, what we got, you heard a little bit from Courtney, but just to let you know what's going on, next month, we have what we call Spirit Week. It's a bunch of festivities during the week, all different things are happening for the operators and in fact, the whole building, the whole staff. So Spirit Week's a big week for us, engagement. Our run pick, which is really a selection process for the operators. The union should be reviewing the latest work that had been done on that, hopefully by this evening or tomorrow. They'll have that for several days or so, looking through that. So that process is already happening. We're bound by the collective bargaining agreement. USC full service on the 24th. And as far as that selection process that's taking place with our union, that service, which is really the same service, just the work is divvied up differently, starts on September 10th. So we'll have new people on new routes, getting adjustment there. So sometimes there's some training with that. People who've never been on a certain route, give them an opportunity to see the route and so forth. It gives, how that works as well is there's a certain time frame that's given to the operators because 53% of our workforce is actually women. And in saying that, there's a lot of adjustments that need to be made as far as childcare and different schedules. So you got to allot that time for people to change their lives for whatever new schedule they may get.
And were we
Yeah.
able to, take the steps that we needed to reinstate the, Route 47 as full service rather than flex?
Well, from our standpoint, what we have to do is part of what Courtney's job will do is we need to hire more operators. That way we know. So we're constant, right now, we're running classes and, we have it out to hire more. We'll be prepared for when that rolls out, 100%.
Are you talking about the September date?
You talking about September or are you talking about?
Not January, but I thought at our last meeting that we said we would be able, that it would be a tight time frame, but we'd be able to move that from a flex route to a
Yeah.
regular route
Yeah, we're still working on that.
for the September.
It
Service
won't
changes.
be for September, based
Yes.
on the issues and the hiring and
Yes,
everything, the
so,
training.
but it's still on track. So
Right.
Yes.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah, I think we've had one public, meeting already. Now, Pam, we have any more scheduled?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm still waiting on some of those elected officials.
Okay, now I just want to be sure now, when you keep saying September, I just want to make sure we're answering your question correctly.
Well, I know that we just have those fixed dates where we do service changes.
Right.
And that we were coming close to not being able to do anything to change. I mean, we just had a small window to make a change before the September 1 preceding the January, but we thought we could do the Route 47 to be implemented in September.
Yes.
Okay.
And I just, that was really what I was.
That's
Am I-
what-
am I-
That's what we left the meeting saying would happen. You would work towards September.
Right.
Right.
And I believe, if anyone. wants to
That's really the
comment
only
on the
one
timeline.
that we're
Yes,
talking
yeah.
about there.
Right.
Yeah, we had a meeting, the staff had a meeting,
Right.
RATP Dev staff and our staff had a meeting about that. And so that's when, like Lenny just said, that he have to do the hiring first. Hiring the driver.
Is it a-
Now, when you say excuse me, go ahead.
I think what we're saying, we thought we were gonna hit that date as far as the service.
Yes,
Okay, starting, I think
Yes.
that's what you,
yes.
but based on the issues that Cooksey is faced with, that's not really going to happen until January.
Yeah, well,
Well, we've said,
No.
we've said, yes, it will be
No,
a
no.
fix, it will be a fixed route.
That ain't gonna work. When we left the board meeting, remember I'm saying board meeting,
right.
it was September.
So September is the next scheduled
when-
service change.
Right, and that's
Okay.
when it could be facilitated. Now, if you tell me something that the board says to be done in September, you can't get it done in January, something's wrong with that picture. I could see you saying, well, September, we're gonna make these changes, but this can't happen till October. That's a different story. You see,
Let me
If I may,
explain. Go ahead, Eric.
yeah, if I may add, I think the motion in the board was to approve the return of service as a fixed route for the route, but not necessarily specifying the specific date that the route would go back into service.
No, I made the motion, so I'm not gonna let you change what the motion was. The motion was I got to September from staff as to when it could go back in. That's what I'm putting on the street. So you tell me something in a board meeting, and then the next meeting, it's changed. You know, that ain't gonna work. I can just tell you, that's not gonna work.
No, I think the September date was when he was given the scheduled service change dates by contract.
Right.
By union contract, they do service changes 3 times a year. That's January, May, and September.
That's correct.
So now I think from what I remember, Mr. Fergus, we said we would have a meeting. The staff would have a meeting about 47. And then you said, well, look, once y'all meet, and if y'all say it won't,
No.
if January be the
No.
date, then
No, we
January.
may have to let y'all listen to a recording or something, because I don't know anything about the September until staff brings September up with the route changes.
Yeah, that is his next
So
scheduled change.
if a person can change to Route 47 in September, what's the holdup for that route not changing in September? You say it's because you need to hire?
Well, I would need to hire, but so let me speak on this. If
I
I
would-
was under understanding that we were gonna be providing a timeline of when we met, of when this was gonna be able to be rolled out to the board of the service committee. I think that piece is missing. I don't
No,
have,
this doesn't even come back to service committee.
well,
You know, this is board approval. So the service committee is out of this.
But Mr. Fergus, we also talked about in the board meeting that going to talk to the people in Lower Richland, letting them know that it was coming back on and making sure that what we develop out is
But
what they
that
need.
still has nothing to do with the comment and the staff and when they do it. When you talk to the folks, it's immaterial. You can talk to them today. You know, the folks in Lower Richland, those powers that be in Lower Richland already know. But I'm just saying, I got it from a board meeting in September. I didn't know September. So I'm saying, if you have to put these routes up for bid and change in September, what's the delay? That's all I'm asking. If a person can change to 47 and delay in September, you're saying actually the route won't be up available for them to change in September, so it has to go in January. You know, that doesn't, I don't see that at all.
Let me see if I can go back and kind of recap, because what, I missed the board meeting, so you know, you all were there and I was not, but at the last service committee meeting, my understanding was that the service changes for phase 2 and 3 and those things would be January. We were clear on that. And then the one kind of exception was the Route 47 to say, well, this isn't really a new service. This is just putting it on a different basis, because now we already have a route, we already have service that's flex. And it was full service, and then it became flex, and we were just going back to a previous, which made that something that sounded to me like at the last service committee meeting wouldn't quite require as many steps as that we have to take when we are making the making some of these bigger service changes.
So
What I'm hearing, I mean, and Mr. Cooksey, I heard you, say, well, we'll have to make sure we have buses available. We have to make sure we have drivers available to do that, because that will, and I will confess to you that I couldn't tell you right now whether you said it took another bus or one more bus or one more driver. I don't know that. But what you're saying is that now is that, and what we were looking at was really a tight window to get all of those steps done, to be able to implement that one change in September rather than waiting for January. And I can't tell whether what's happened in between to whether you were unable to confirm that you will have enough, another bus, or if it takes more than one, or another driver if it takes more than one. That's what I'm missing.
Yeah, so let me tell you where I'm at on this. So
Sure.
our last conversation, it was a tight window to get it done by September, but we met with the comment and the staff. My understanding is that there was a timeline going to be created on when they were going to meet and do all these different things. And part of that, not just all me, part of that was me cranking up the hiring to make sure I have enough people. First, I got to even see the service and to confirm what I'm looking at. We haven't seen that.
What the fixed route will look like.
Right, so but part of that, the whole process was the different entities creating the timeline. And then we were gonna, even though it was voted to move forward with it, that was gonna take place in January. Now, we did say September because we do have a run pick. I need to see it.
There's no way in the world that nobody on this board voted to put a route in Route 47 in January. Nobody on the board would have voted for that in January. And the only reason we're discussing it now, because it was unique and it was a fixed route that was removed going back, and it's replacing something with the flex route. Now, we know about the route. The bidding in the September, right? But I'm still not understanding, if somebody's bidding in September and 47 is listed, why does it take to January to put it in? You told me you had buses, because that was one of my concerns. Because we always got 4 buses anytime we run show. That's what the soda kept running around town empty. We got 4 buses anytime you need a bus. Now, if you say you need to hire, that hadn't been an issue coming to either service or the board, that you're short on drivers. Now, are you short on drivers now?
To add the additional, I could run technically I could run it off what they call the extra board.
No, just answer.
Yes.
Answer that.
Well,
Are you
sure?
short on drivers now?
I have what I need to run everything that's currently in front of us minus without the 47. If we had the 47, I was gonna add some more operators in to help cover the 47 route.
All right, but the board meeting was, what, last month?
But I was under the impression.
How often does your hiring process
Oh,
go?
we run classes every 2 weeks.
All right,
I got
let
them in
me ask
class
you
right
this.
now.
Have we hired anybody from Haywood Career Center yet?
I did talk to Courtney about the focus there, so I'll find out if we have anybody from there. I know that was one of our targets.
Right, so
So
what I
I
was
just
just
need
hearing,
to
what I
see-
was just hearing you say, is that it's not that in a crunch for a limited time, you could run the route between September and January, but what you'd be putting at risk is your extra board, which means that if then a driver calls in sick, it depletes your ability to have somebody to put into that slot immediately.
Yeah, right. We can run it. The service will run. One, I need to see the service, so I know what I'm running. And actually, I need that today, because we've got to build that into within our timeline of when our operators have to choose their work.
That we're at that deadline.
We're already at the deadline, so.
All right, so Eric, a while back, you had your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to add, after the last service committee meeting, we never really had a true chance to come back and provide a report on what our findings were. After we had a conversation about, returning it back to a fixed route, we discovered that it required more trips, and it was at a frequency that required more buses, and obviously the manpower have to be there. So yeah, we do try to maintain some sort of a bus on site, but we also have to abide by some regulations from FTA where we need to have the appropriate spare ratio just in case that something goes wrong and we have a bus available in order to supplement some of the service deficiencies. So in this case, I wanted to at least show what we were planning to share at the board meeting. this is the project timeline that we were proposing. And we were saying that we are here, and now at this point, we're in August. But what we're working on is trying to do a public meeting in September. And then from there, another public meeting in November, and begin implementation of service in January. And this will also be the rollout of phase 1 of the Lucius and River project, even though I know it's totally separate. But I just wanted to at least echo that internally we've been connected to what the path forward has been. We just never really had a true opportunity to be able to present this information to the service community to let you guys know what the plans were.
Yes, Mr.
Madam
Converge,
Chair,
thank you.
I have grave concern. Everybody that speak about, I haven't had a chance to bring 47. 47 doesn't come back to the service committee. 47 was approved by the board. So you take the board action and that's what you run with. But I have grave concerns that we have board members that volunteer their time to come and sit in these meetings, work to approve things out in the community, and then get no action from staff. So when we leave here and staff has been instructed to do something, why am I sitting at another meeting with staff telling me what they're gonna do some other time? I have grave concerns with that.
All right, so here's my.
I have grave concerns with that.
I'm hearing you and my, here was my conception of this, that as Mr. Fergus pointed out, the service committee action was to recommend to the board that this go back to a fixed route. My understanding is at the board meeting that was approved, that recommendation was approved. What sounds different to me today from my own understanding was that I thought in our discussion in the service committee meeting that we really didn't have to go back through all of the public meetings and that kind of timeline because we weren't doing anything except taking the same route that a bus went on and making it fixed rather than flex. So maybe that was an error on my part, but I thought that some of the things, Eric, on your timeline that do make it longer, I thought
Correct.
in this particular instance, those were not steps we needed to take because we weren't, I mean, it was like one of those things that comes under the wire in terms of where we are required to go back through that full
It was an
process.
executive order from the board. That's the best way to say it.
And
No more strings
Ms.
attached to
But
All right,
anytime,
let me get Eric and then we get you back.
So, Ms. Moo, you're absolutely right. The steps that were in the timeline were not necessary for what the request was out of the service committee. What we, after having discussion internally and thinking about feasibility, we wanted to make sure that we came back with something to make sure that even during this time period, even though September doesn't seem as feasible, we can at least start engaging Richland County to let them know that this is what we're planning to do. We're bringing it back and just trying to make sure we show good faith in our efforts. So this was just our action plan to make sure everyone knew that we were on it. We were working together. We were going to make it happen. But September just wasn't feasible after we met extensively about it initially.
Pam?
no, I was gonna say that generally anytime that there is a service change, you have to let the public know. But we wanted to do more than our due diligence for Lower Richland because that's just an important corridor to be able to meet it. Because we hadn't met with them since our previous interim director was here. But we wanted to meet with them to make sure to even answer some concerns that they might have or any questions. Because it's been a long time since it's been a fixed route in that area.
Madam Chair, I still say, when it's an authorized action of the board, what I'm seeing is, it was just too many hands in the pot. So from now on, when something comes from the board, I'm thinking it should just be directed to the executive director to do, and then that's the end of it. So when we discuss, because all I'm hearing now is excuses why, and I know nothing about, or the board know nothing about September, other than staff bringing that up.
All right, so what I'm gonna do with that, this moment is, Leroy, I'm gonna ask you to look into whether there's any way that, given the deadline that Ms. Cooksey has, whether there's any way to expedite this board decision. And, I mean, we can't do it in this room, but I'm gonna have to give it.
But we can't even do that here because the service committee sure can't, tamper with what a board said to do. So we may as well just drop that issue and just bring it back to the next board meeting.
Well,
For what, because I'm very disturbed about that.
well, my concern is, and the reason I was
Very
asking him to see if there's something.
There's nothing you can do with him at the service committee level when we made this action at the board.
Well,
Now,
I'm
the
not giving
board
him a new
can give him a
directive from
new
the service committee. I'm
instruction.
just saying, from the board action last month, would you see if there's anything that can be done to make this happen in September? And then we can hear from that at the next board meeting. We can hear back
No,
from
no,
that.
no, you can't.
Well,
I
I
don't want
mean-
you to do any more violation. Like I'm saying, that was a done deal at a board meeting, so it's not even up for discussion again in this setting.
Well, tell me,
I don't
can you
know.
tell us what your expectation is that would happen here today?
If September was wrong, I should hear, in here, but I really shouldn't hear nothing in here. I should have heard at the board meeting, well, September, we can't do it, but all we heard was possibility. We heard that in the staff meeting, in the board meeting, and we approved it. Now, if you come back and say, well, I got to hire, you're still talking about a short distance. But if you're talking about you got to hire in August to get something going for January, we already telling people, those that are out there in the community, that this route is coming back because it was approved by the board. So I know they're not going to, in the community and say, well, we're gonna have this route up in January. That doesn't make sense. You're contradicting everything that other board members are even doing. That doesn't make sense. But I'm just saying, I think it was too many hands in the till, because it shouldn't have been but one action, and then the responses to that action. It shouldn't have been a discussion here, a meeting here. It should have been a response to the action, a direction of the board.
All right, so at the board meeting, when the motion was passed to restore Route 47 as a fixed route, what I'm hearing you say is that at the board meeting,
That's correct.
it was said that there was a possibility that it could be done in September.
In September.
And so really, there's no action for us to take here. There's just a report to come back to the board at its meeting this month
And
about the
then-
status of that action by the
No,
board.
I'm thinking the boards need to come back to staff and find out, because I know it's a few more other board members are concerned about this too. That in the direction of the board, and we still talking about a meeting here, meeting there, on a direction from the board.
Right.
But
And
I
so,
have problems
but,
already that those things happen all the time. When you get a direction from the board, it's on staff timeline to do it. That isn't true,
well,
but that's
I
another
think,
issue.
I
See, but
think
we're
we are,
gonna
I think where
address
we
that.
are in agreement is that there's no action that the service committee needs to
That's
take
correct.
today.
Yeah.
And that I know the staff is hearing and Mr. Cooks is hearing the concern about there being, and if there's any way possible to make that happen in September, that was what the possibility that was.
What may have been acceptable today if we've heard, well, the route changes in September. But maybe we can get this done October, November. Even that's different.
Well,
But
I'm
hearing-
pretty sure from what I'm hearing here that we're not going to get into a pattern of making service changes in between the dates that we've agreed upon that service changes will take place, because that really does open up Pandora's box of things changing all the time, which was the reason we went to definite service changes dates.
Madam Chairwoman, this is Will Brennan.
Yes, Will.
You know, I think I understand policies and procedures and timelines for an organization like ours. But when you layer on the critical need of this line and what it means and to the residents of Lower Richland, I think it's upon Mr. DeChamps as the executive director to recognize the criticalness of this and reroute the path to making it happen. So kind of bucking the trend of our regular public meetings, public awareness. I just think this falls on the executive director to figure out the quickest way to get it done under the vote that was taken by the full board. And I do think that if there's an emergency or a critical status that can be triggered, I think that's the best route for Mr. DeChamps to take to make this happen.
All right, thank you for that input. And then what I will do is just say to Mr. DeChamps, you've heard the discussion today, and so it's really kind of in your lap to bring back to the board what you were able to do about this and where we are.
Yes,
Is that?
yes,
Got
I'll
that.
get with Mr. Cook.
All right.
See.
So the follow-up on this discussion would happen at the board meeting. Are we okay there? Okay.
Yeah, and, you know, I just want to make sure for the record, you know, I'm currently running classes now, right? So we'll be prepared, in our ATP Dev and our responsibility to run whatever you put out if you give it to me. I just, on the back end, there's just some work to do.
Yeah, and the reality that there are a lot
And I
of,
think that's what I expressed earlier. I ain't even seen it. I have to have what it is I'm running. Buses, I can't get you because I can't. People, I'm running classes every 2 weeks.
yeah, and I
I'll
guess
meet that obligation.
I hear you, and to Mr. Burgess's comment about the number of people involved. There are a lot of people involved because there are a lot of things that have to be done, the details. I guess my surprise was that you wouldn't have already had that, that you wouldn't have already, given the month in between, that you wouldn't have already gotten what that route would look like. That's a surprise to me, but anyway, we're not gonna resolve this here, and I think Mr. DeChamps will be working with us on what can be done, and that he'll be reported back to the board on
Madam
that.
Chair,
Yes.
I have a few questions I want to ask Mr. Cooksey, but if you don't feel like answering them today, or can't do them off the top of your head, or 'cause I need this for something we're gonna be doing tomorrow.
Okay.
Lake buses, what's the time? And for example, if I'm downtown, what's the latest I can leave town and go home to any area? Well, that's.
You want the
know,
last bus of the night type, the latest?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me get I'll get that for you.
One other thing, USC buses. What is the time of day that you stop running students?
I think. Yeah.
Route 20 starts as early as around 7 a.m. in the morning, 7:30.
They
Running.
stop.
Yeah.
What time do you
Stop.
start running students?
Around 8 o'clock or 8-ish. I'll get you the exact time. So,
Okay, but the reason I'm asking you that, the question I
yeah.
want answered, what do we do with USC buses after we stop running students?
They're actually parked here on the yard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the requirements that they allow us to, you want to speak about the USC branded buses on the regular kicks, but they're here on the yard.
Yeah, we only use the USC buses and the Soda Cap buses on other routes, only if we have to.
That's
And what about
possible. We
other
don't do it routinely, but that's.
Right,
Right.
we don't, yeah.
There's
One other question.
Yeah.
And what that means is we've cycled through the excess buses that we've had.
And also too, the buses that we were planning on using for Route 47. The buses they're using now for the existing 47 flex route or the cutaway buses.
Uh-huh.
So they're not the big buses.
Right.
So we can use those buses, take them from DART, use them for the 47 regular route. But those buses have to be rerouted because they have the word reflex on them. So in order to use them on the regular 47, we gotta take reflex
All for that.
off of.
Right.
So we gotta get those rerouted.
Yeah,
All right,
well,
one
well,
other-
let me ask you this. I mean, this is makeshift stuff, and I feel like we do having, doing things, talking about here really that are staff things to talk about. Here's my thought. I really don't have much concern about restarting the fixed route with the smaller buses, because I think it takes time to build ridership. So, I mean, I don't think we're gonna have standing room only on a 15 passenger bus the first day. On the rewrap, I'm looking for some duct tape to cover the, to cover the reflex.
But can I finish, Madam Chair, can I finish?
I mean,
with
but just,
that?
I'm being serious. I mean, if there's a temporary, knowing that that has to happen, but, I mean, that it feels, you know, like there ought to be some temporary way to use a bus that, just for the,
If I'm in Greenview, just say, just there, North Main. What is the latest I can get from North Main to downtown?
Yeah, that's around 9, that's around 9 p.m.
9:15, 9.
Around
The
9
reason I'm
p.m.
asking these questions, because we're gonna be meeting tomorrow to discuss how we can start negotiating, how we put that penny back, get folks to vote for penny. Now, if you lived in Richland County prior to the penny, those times that I asked you about were later, even leaving town. So when we go out and talk to the public, and the public gonna scream that we got less service after the penny than we had before the penny, it would be absolutely correct. So that's why I'm saying what's going forward has to be additional service or something exciting about the service. Else these folks aren't gonna vote for it. And I know I won't be one to tell them to vote for a penny, because I've never done it in the past. See, so I'm thinking, you know, and I'm hearing bad things about when that penny may go. So, I mean, staff, and I think it's board fault. Staff need to start taking this stuff serious that we're doing and just think we just come in a meeting to blow smoke and talk and go. But we coming here representing the community. We're hearing these things. So that's all I need to say. I'm really disappointed today. with what
Mr.
I've heard
Burgess,
and discussed.
I'm hoping that in that, with that conversation tomorrow, that in addition to whatever the numbers are that you get from the staff about those exact times that what the buses are available and
I don't
running at
need
night.
that tomorrow, I just.
What I hope that as informed board members, we'd be able to let them know is that when the buses that ran later, earlier on in our history, when we were doing our good stewardship work to see that those buses were empty or had one person on them. That's
not true.
this is
Maybe
what-
that's before I came on the
Well,
board.
wait a minute. What the action that was taken was to say, how can we accommodate those few people that are riding late at night without running a 40-foot bus for the 8 hours that were not being used? And that's when we went into the partnership with Uber and Lyft so that people who had a ride on the bus to get to their job and needed a ride home late at night could have a way to get back home. So we weren't abandoning people who rode that bus. But, so I just want us to not, to always, try to convey to the public the rationale for changes, not just the fact that a bus used to run till 11 and now runs it to 9, and what we did to accommodate the people who needed that service. That's my only point.
The one thing that I won't do, I won't go into my community and tell any bus rider and mention Uber and Lyft when we asking them to vote for a penny. and they voted for a penny. And you think that I will go in the community now and tell them and mention Uber and Lyft, I'm gonna get you in your community 8 o'clock. But if you get off from work at 11, you can call Uber and Lyft and pay, and I'm not gonna do that. So if anybody expect me to do that, you're wrong.
But you
I'm
know,
not gonna do that.
but you know that agreement is not just just call them and they'll take you home. That's
I'm
our obligation
only
to cover that
discuss
cost.
the comment and bus service in these different communities. That's the only thing I'm gonna discuss. Maybe staff can go with that Uber and Lyft, but nobody can go to a community and say, this community is doing a lot of Lyft or Uber. You can't go to a community in Richland County and say that's happening. You can't give a record of that. So why would I go out trying to sell that? You maybe can do it down Main Street, Gervais.
I think we probably exhausted this topic.
I just,
Anything else from you, Mr. Cooksey, on your report? Oh, Eric, did you still have your hand up?
yeah, just really quick. I wanted to at least be able to give the information to Mr. Fergus in the meeting. So the latest route on North Main would be 9:15. And then the latest route for USC would be around midnight.
What does USC do at midnight?
They have two routes that are called Evening 1 and Evening 2. So this is just their routes to kind of help facilitate students getting, to and from the area.
Okay, thank you for that. And Mr. Cooksey, did we let you finish your report? You're done with yours. Okay, so we're down to ridership analysis.
Yes, and we actually do have the ridership report, and it will be included in the package. And I can kind of show you it after this meeting. I'll be sure to have Angela be able to circulate this through email. That way you can have it at least on your file. Let me see if I can. Let's see. There we go. So, 1 second. So what we have here, and this is just high level overview. There you go. Okay, let me see if I can zoom in here for you. There we go. So for the month of June, we have a pretty good rapport of ridership. We're up 14,000 passengers from the previous year and all the way down. Only thing that was a deficiency, which is Sunday levels of service. And most of those routes are up and down by more so like 50 passengers. So not much of an impact. So I think we are doing well in terms of month to month. What we would do in the next month is be able to provide a trajectory of how well we're performing from a year to year standpoint, and just kind of looking at those ridership trends, figuring out those routes that are doing well, those routes that are not as performing. And again, we're trying to get back to a space that may seem impossible, but getting back to those pre-pandemic numbers, and just figuring out strategies that we can do to kind of help, fast track that process. Again, just from the numbers I've seen across the nation, we're not doing we're not worse off from what other people are doing. So we have been able to retain some of the ridership there. So we are doing pretty well in terms of trajectory, but we do know that there have been some adjustments to the ridership trends that would cause some of the routes to not perform as well, depending on the corridor in which you are located. So these are some of the things that we're looking at. Again, we're going to keep updating what we call our service route analysis. We want to make that a every 2-year document. And so we're kind of due up for that. So I want to compile all the data into a formal report and be able to distribute that to the service committee and also to the eventually to the board as well.
All right, well, Eric, I will just say that what I've missed in the last few months is that we haven't been getting the route analysis. We get in Mr. Cooksey's report, we get the kind of overall growth and the year, month to month and year to year comparison. But for the service committee to be able to have the detail, the route analysis to say, so we're not, so we can speak knowledgeably and look, do our job to say which of the routes are doing well, what is the trend route by route, because I think that's the level of oversight that the committee's held responsible for doing, is looking at those details. And so and the kind of report that you're putting up now, route by route, that's the thing that I've been missing from our packet recently, and I hope I'm counting on having that back on a monthly basis.
Absolutely, Ms. Wu. We will have that included in a report going forward. And again, we will send this out as supplemental information for this
So
meeting.
we'll get this one in by email. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions for Eric?
I noticed they put 2 701s running out Forest Drive now, because I noticed the other bus will be crowded, real crowded, because I go out that area a lot. Actually, I go out to the beauty shop about every 2 weeks. And it was real crowded and people had to just stand and stand. So then I asked the driver and he said they were putting an extra bus out there. So when I went back out that area out there, and Richland Mall, Belks is closing at Richland Mall, anybody that goes Belks there is closing. So they have been running 2, like one's going, one's coming, go out there to the Walmart and make that circle and come back in.
So do you have a question for Mr. Cooksey or Jackie about what's happening on
So they still,
701?
they got 2 out there, right, Jackie?
I don't know if they, and that's probably, if they got a second bus, it's
Yeah.
probably during those times that the bus is crowded, the initial
Right,
bus is crowded, then they'll just add another bus, what they call
Right.
like a tripper.
And in the morning, it's when it's real crowded going out there towards
So when
Walmart.
they can anticipate, then they'll have 2 buses
Right.
leaving for that on the same
Right.
schedule.
I mean, and that's normal, we've done that plenty of times.
Okay,
Okay, all right. All right, so we're done with ridership analysis and go on to 5E, the agency safety plan. Dr. Prince.
Okay, good afternoon. The document that is referenced here starts on pages 39 verses 38 and goes up to page 113. And to just give you a little bit of history about this document, it was required to be put in place by FTA during July 2020. And during that time, we received funding from SCDOT, and we utilized a consultant to develop the plan that you see that's in this document. And in the document is, you also see it's called SMS Development Plan. That's more like an assessment. So before they put the actual plan in place, the consultant did an assessment of our safety. So what we have been doing since 2020 is that once the document was in place, we had to go in and do updates if there are changes, and then submit those changes to the board for approval. So what we have been doing is that, and I was gonna say also since December 2022, last year, FTA went back and made one other addition. They wanted everyone to have safety committees in place. Now, we already have a safety committee, but based on their guidelines, we went back and made some updates or made changes to the people that were served on the safety committee. So we had the safety committee had to go in and do a review of the safety plan. So we met with them, they did a review, and they didn't have any changes based on what was already put in place by the consultant. So we can continue to go forward with that. So what we did, based on the language that we have in the safety plans that we had said around July of each year, we was kind of like have the safety committee to look at the safety plan to see if there are any updates. So we did go through and look at the safety plan, and the only changes that we see that need to be made right now would be changes to like personnel, like title changes. We also updated some of the org charts, and also the contractors named Transdev was still in the safety plan, so we updated that to RATP Dale. And there was one document that was inside as an attachment. It was called the Safety, Security, and Emergency Preparedness and Disaster Recovery Plan. We had Homeland Security came in and did an assessment last year, and they suggested that that document be a standalone, that it not be a part of the safety plan, so we're just removing it. So those are some of the changes that are being made to this document. And I also want to share that the safety and training manager for RATP Dale is the person, is the safety officer. So that person is responsible for implementation of this plan. So we're asking that staff be allowed to, if you approve, if you allow staff to forward this document to the full board for approval, so we can submit it on to FTA.
Okay, and so, and that what I'm understanding is those just kind of updating personnel titles and people and so not substantive big changes. And then separating the two for the emergency response into two separate documents that overall of the overall safety plan.
Right.
Those are the, all right, so you just need we need a motion to, that we recommend to the board, the approval of this updated safety plan.
Yes.
Do I have a motion for that?
I second it.
All right, we'll move in second. Any further discussion or questions for Dr. Prince? If not, can we have a vote?
Mr. Brennan,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Ms. Gleaton,
Yes.
Ms. Herbert. Ms. Herbert,
Yes.
Ms. Mood,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right. And with that, my only other item is motion to adjourn.
So move.
Let's go.
All in favor? Voice vote, aye.
All right.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.